synthetic truths. These are not analytic. Yep, that's all right. Happy with that? Okay, so analytical behaviorism was the idea that what Carnap says here, nobody really believes, right? You can't really, it's very hard to give a definition of a term like excited or in pain in that very sharp way. But what people thought really might be true, and this is what Putnam's attacking in this article, is there are entailments between statements about the mind and statements about behavior, entailments that are not analytic in the way in which all bachelors are unmarried is analytic, but nevertheless follow, in some sense, from the meanings of the mind words. So the idea is that if you say about someone he's jealous or he's thinking about arithmetic, then these entailments between jealousy and the way someone behaves, or between being excited and the way they behave, maybe you can't actually translate the talk about jealousy into a set of statements about how the person's going to behave, but you really are giving a classification of their behavior in a loose kind of way. I mean, that's very intuitive if you think about a word like grumpy. If you say someone is grumpy, you're not making any definite prediction about how they're going to behave, but you are saying something about what kind of behavior you can expect from them. In a loose way, you're talking about their behavior. So the reason you can't give definitions in the way Carnap thought is really for superficial reasons, like the greater ambiguity of mind talk as compared to the relatively greater specificity of overt behavior talk. Yep. Sorry? Did Carnap come up with it? I don't think Carnap came up with it. Do you guys have a bet on who invented analytical behaviorism? There was a group of people, the logical positivists, who were very friendly to behaviorism, and who I would think it was one or the other of the logical positivists, the Vienna Circle, who came up with it. Carnap was one of these guys, but I don't have any particular reason to think he was the one who came up with it. Yeah. Oh, yes, yes.
Like the sentence, like Homo sapien is a mammal. So which kind of truth is that?
Sorry, which kind of truth is Homo sapien is a mammal? Yeah, that's a difficult one, because I guess Homo sapien is an internal term of biological science, yeah? And so within biology, you might not know what Homo sapien meant without knowing that it was a name for a mammal, yeah? It would be a bit like saying, well, you can know what water is without knowing that it's a compound, but arguably you couldn't know what H2O is without knowing that it's a compound. You see what I mean? So Homo sapien, I guess, is a term like H2O. Yeah? Yep. Okay, so Putnam has a very simple argument against analytical behaviorism. I mean, anyone's natural reaction to this kind of argument is to say, no, my mind is in here. The behavior is out there. When I'm talking about the mind, I'm talking about stuff in here. And it's not quite obvious, though, how far you can push that. Putnam's example is he talks about a people who are, I guess Spartans tended not to show pain, right? If you're brave and you are hurt, do you hop about and say, ouch? No. You might raise an eyebrow, but you don't hop about. So a Spartan feels pain, all right, but just doesn't show it. Is thought to be undignified or unbecoming to express pain. They might say they're in pain, but they always do so in pleasant, well-modulated voices. And let's suppose that as generations go by, Spartans are born that way. Initially, they need a lot of early training, but those that don't get trained don't find partners And so it's just bred out of them, the impulse to hop about and say ouch and so on. Yeah? That could happen. That makes sense. You could be born. There's not that they're born without feeling pain, it's that they're born without any tendency to display signs of pain. And on the X world, Putnam says, people don't even talk about pain. They feel it all right, but they don't talk about it. So then you get people who feel pain, but it makes no difference whatever to their behavior. You have a whole society that is feeling pain, and it never shows up in anyone's behavior. Yeah?
You know, we argue that it's just the way that we view that behavior, and we practically change that behavior in a way that we haven't noticed.
It could be changing the behavior in a way that we haven't noticed. Yeah.
Behavior is only something which you know and observe.
Okay, very good. Yeah. It might be showing up in ways, maybe their earlobes twitch a little bit when they're in great agony. Is that the kind of thing?
Well, I was speaking more about things like if they got more aggressive.
They might get more aggressive, yeah.
Well, there's subtle things like that you wouldn't necessarily notice.
Yeah.
But it's just weird to think that. I know it's only an example, and a hypothetical example. It's weird to think that it had no effect.
Yeah. Well, there are two things here. One is I don't see why it must have an effect. It might be that it gets bottled up at every point. I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. And the other thing is, even if it doesn't get bottled up at every point, if maybe they clench their fists when they're feeling great pain, something like that, or maybe, as you say, they get kind of aggressive in other ways. So long as that's not part of the definition of pain, yeah, because nobody's noticed that this is what's going on. Yeah, so you could understand pain, the word pain, perfectly well. Then saying that they're in pain can't be a way of saying they're behaving like this. Yeah. So the meaning of the word pain can't be they're going to behave aggressively if nobody's ever noticed that. You see what I mean? So that's just a way of making really vivid the idea that pain is talking about some inner state. It's just not talking about your behavior. What I said about jealousy and so on is kind of plausible for jealousy. It's not at all plausible for pain. Yeah, that's Putnam's main point in that article. Yep. Does that make sense? Yep. Yes, yes.
Wouldn't like a really easy way to Carnap's view on this is people who don't feel pain. You know, there's like certain people that they can get like a cut on the arm and never know it and not behave that way at all. But then I know that internally, like the same whatever fires and it's like the
Yes.
same reaction. They just don't show it. Like wouldn't that be like a really easy way to say that behavior?
There is an easy way to get the effect. Yeah, but Putnam's thing is very extreme because there is a natural way for someone like Carnap to answer your point, which is to say, suppose I get cut and I don't show any sign of it in my behavior. Yeah, nonetheless, I may really want to. That's the idea that I'm bottling it up. Yeah, I'm not going to show it in front of all you guys, whatever pain I'm feeling. Yeah, but if everybody goes out, then I start to yell and scream and do all that stuff. You see what I mean? So I've got that tendency to do it if I was just let off the leash. But it's just that I'm not let off the leash. And Putnam's point about these people is, leash or no leash, they have no tendency to display it. But you can still make perfect sense of the idea that they feel pain. Yeah? Yeah. So it's just pushing your point a bit further. Okay. The thing is, I hope that seems very sensible, what Putnam is saying here. The thing is, if you push it just a little bit further, we tend to think that if you've got a pain, then you know all about it. But really, that's not true for many creatures. And if you think of animals, animals can feel pain. You can have a dog that feels pain, but dogs don't know about pain. I mean, they don't think about it. I mean, maybe they don't think at all. If you take fish, presumably fish can feel pain. Do fish think? That's like an article in the New Yorker. Do fish think? Anyway, no, fish don't think. So they don't think about pain, right? But they might have pain nonetheless. Thinking about it and knowing it is one thing and having it is another. So you can have the pain, and we tend to suppose that if you attend to the pain, then you're going to know that you've got it. Of course, that's not always true. We talked about people who are very distracted, footballers on a play or soldiers on a battlefield, who get their arms torn off and presumably are feeling great pain, but just don't notice because of the stress of the situation. There was for a while an actual anaesthetic in use in hospitals that combined a muscle relaxant with an amnestic. I mean, it wasn't quite known what it all did, but this was the analysis of what these things are doing. It seemed to work perfectly well as an anaesthetic. When people woke up from the operation, they said, "Has it begun? I didn't know anything had happened." But the thing is, the drug contained a muscle relaxant so that you couldn't move at all during the operation, no matter what was happening. And an amnestic, so it did something to your memory. You couldn't remember afterwards anything of what had gone on during the operation. So suppose you're feeling everything as the knife divides the flesh. Can you complain? No, because you were a muscle relaxant. Will you remember anything about it? No, because you had the amnestic. So you can have a lot of pain, in principle, without knowing anything about it. Yeah? Would you wish to use such an anesthetic? Yeah?
You said something about how the Spartans, or the people in the X world, they can try to suppress their pain, but in the end they would have it. But you said the same might not be true about jealousy. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Oh, yeah, that's a very good comment. Can I postpone that just a second till I get to the end? Because I really that needs a bit of separate discussion. Okay, so we were talking about these cases where distraction makes you forget your headache. And presumably, if that's what happens when you're watching a movie or something, your headache's still there, even though you're not noticing it. Because having the headache is one thing, and knowing about it is another. So what Putnam's doing with that Super Spartans example is he's saying whether you have the pain is one thing, and whether anyone else knows about it is another. And what I'm saying here is whether you have the pain is one thing, and whether you know about it is another. But if you push that really hard, then after all, you could have super duper Spartans, if you see what I mean. You could have Spartans where it's not just that nobody else knows about the pain they're having. They don't know about the pain they're having. Maybe they're all bred so that they don't even notice when they're in pain. They have lots of pain. They experience the agonies of the damned. But they don't know about it. Why not? So you could call that a Y world, where the Super Spartans not only don't talk about pain, they don't even notice that they have it themselves. And when you think about that possibility, maybe we are Y-worlders. And after all, maybe this whole room at the moment is an ocean of physical pain. A